Less than 3 weeks from Election Day, one of the two candidates for president is currently awaiting sentencing on 34 felony criminal convictions. Now, you might recall Donald Trump paid adult film actress Stormy Daniels, you see there, $130,000 to sign a non-disclosure agreement 11 days before the 2016 election. So voters would not hear her story of having an adulterous affair with Trump shortly after his third wife, Melania, gave birth to their son. When Trump's lawyer, Michael Cohen, exposed that Trump laundered the payments through his business to disguise them, Trump was criminally prosecuted for fraud. 34 felony charges, 34 convictions. Now, the former president is due to be sentenced in late November after the election. And now, just days away from the 2024 election, Rachel Maddow has brand new reporting that Donald Trump has once again been trying to make a deal to keep Stormy Daniels quiet. Rachel Maddow is here with me tonight with a special report. Rachel.
Chris, yeah, I'm as bewildered by this as you are. Thank you for the chance to break this story here. I don't know why I am surprised that this is happening. I will admit to being a little bit bewildered by it as well as a little bit shocked by it, even though none of us should be shocked by anything. But let me lay it out for you. So, as you mentioned, and as we all know, Trump was convicted earlier this year, 34 felonies, after he paid Stormy Daniels to be quiet. He paid her 11 days before the 2016 election to not talk about her, what she described as her unpleasant experience having sex with him. He paid her so voters would not know about that when they went to vote in 2016. Well, now we have just learned, we have reported out 20 days, here it is, 20 days before this election, we can report that he is once again trying to pay Stormy Daniels to be quiet ahead of this next election. Here's how we came to it. After Stormy Daniels testified in Trump's criminal trial earlier this year, where Trump was convicted, you might remember she came and did kind of a blockbuster interview here on MSNBC. And in anticipation of that interview, expecting that it might have a big impact, Ms. Daniels set up a GoFundMe to try to crowdfund some of the hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees that she still owed to Trump at the end of the multiple legal cases she had ended up in with him, including, you might remember, an ill-fated defamation case that was filed by her now imprisoned lawyer. Anyway, big mess. She owed him hundreds of thousands of dollars. And that GoFundMe actually did raise enough money for her to pay it off, which is a very big deal for her. That's a life-changing thing. So she's got the money to pay him off. She does owe him the money. Her lawyers start having a back and forth with Trump's lawyers about finalizing the exact amount of the payment. And there is a little arithmetic and negotiation that has to happen there. For example, there's interest that accrues on the original amount. So the two sides have to work out how long it's been accruing interest and what the exact amount down to the penny will need to be paid depending on which exact day you pay. I mean, it's normal for there to be some back and forth about that. It's normal for there to be some disagreement. Trump's side at one point was demanding around $652,000. Stormy Daniels' side was saying they thought it should be closer to $600,000. So they had to work all this out. At this point, Stormy Daniels is looking forward to having it all over and done with, bringing the whole saga with her and Trump to a close. When it comes time for Stormy Daniels' lawyer to call her and give her the final amount, she decides to film the call. Because this is a big moment in her life, right? She's expecting to hear from her lawyer on this call. You know, Stormy, here's the amount. We've agreed. We're sending the wire tomorrow. And then congratulations, Stormy. It is done. You're officially done. Donald Trump is out of your life. She is expecting this to be a cinematic moment, a big deal in her life. And so she decides to film it. Phone rings. She puts it on speakerphone and she films it. But what her lawyer is calling to tell her is not what she's expecting. Watch.
What we're going to say in the future. That's no way. No, I can't let you do that. So he's like, okay, I got to get back with him, you know. So they want to cut some kind of deal where they silence you.
Don't they know that won't work?
It's not going to happen. Okay, it's not going to happen.
We had to bleep a little swearing there. But what her lawyer tells her is they want to cut some sort of deal where they silence you. In the midst of this negotiation over paying off the last legal settlement between them, Trump is trying to get another hush money deal with Stormy Daniels ahead of this election. Trump's lawyer basically offered to take it off the bottom line. They would pretend that Stormy Daniels owed less money to Trump than they actually believed she owed if she also signed an agreement to not talk about Trump. You know, when he paid her $130,000 in hush money before the 2016 election, that turned into 34 felony convictions for Trump because a jury found that he illegally laundered those payments through his business to cover it up. This time, they were apparently planning to launder the new hush money payment to Stormy Daniels through the payment of a legal judgment. Now, we know that because of this call. We also know because Ms. Daniels' lawyer has provided us the documents that show how it happened, and I can show you those in print. In this email we obtained from Stormy Daniels' attorney, we've redacted the street addresses and email addresses and phone numbers. Those are our redactions, but this is otherwise exactly what was sent. And I'll read it directly. Dear Clark and Allison, who are Stormy Daniels' lawyers, we disagree that a payment of $620,000 would be in full satisfaction of the three judgments. However, quote, we can agree to settle these matters for $620,000, provided that your client agrees in writing to make no public or private statements related to any alleged past interactions with President Trump or defamatory or disparaging statements about him, his business, and or any affiliates, or his suitability as a candidate for president. So we'll take less than we believe she owes, more than $30,000 less than we were previously demanding, if Stormy Daniels signs an agreement right now to not talk about Trump, to not talk about having sex with him before, which is what we paid her for before, and to not say anything bad about him now running for president. Stormy's lawyer repeatedly said no to her signing any kind of NDA. You saw her natural reaction in the moment saying, no way. So he said no to any kind of NDA. And then look at this, Chris. He gets this email from Trump's lawyer. Quote, I just spoke to my client, that would be Donald Trump, and co-counsel. Case can be settled for $635,000. No mention of an NDA. So the way this goes is, hey, we think she owes $650,000. Okay, we'll take $620,000 if she also signs an NDA. No to the NDA? Okay, fine, I've spoken to Trump. Then it's going to be $635,000. Stormy's attorney tells us they finally settled on $627,500, which is what Stormy paid, and she never signed anything. Now, I will tell you, we sent questions about all of this to Trump's Florida attorney who was handling these negotiations. He did not reply. He forwarded our email to the Trump campaign. They gave us a response instead. Their response was quite unexpected. They told us, oh, these documents are part of the Iranian hacking. Quote, these purported documents were attained as part of an illegal foreign hacking attack against President Trump and his team. We are working with authorities to determine the legal repercussions for those likely committing federal offenses by posting and utilizing stolen material by terror regime adversaries. Ms. Daniels has been held to account by having to pay President Trump over and above the money she owes to him as a result of her wrongdoings. Now, parts of that statement are factually and sort of legally inexplicable, but that is what they told us. We went back to them again saying thanks, but asking them about the hush money demand specifically, they just reiterated that statement. As I said, we got these communications straight from Stormy Daniels' lawyer. After speaking with Stormy Daniels herself, there was no hacking involved. We did not get them from any hack or from the leaking of any hacked documents. There was a breach of the Trump campaign recently. Last month, the Justice Department indicted 3 Iranians for hacking into the Trump campaign back in May, stealing emails and documents and then trying to shop them to the media and to the Biden campaign. Some emails between Trump's lawyers and Stormy's lawyers from these negotiations did just recently turn up online in a report on Substack. Stormy Daniels and her lawyer both told us they know nothing about that. But we didn't get them from any Iranian hacking operation or any leak of any Iranian hacked materials. And so putting the Iranian hacking diversion to the side and their threats about it and stuff, the bottom line here is the Republican nominee for president, Donald Trump, is currently awaiting sentencing for crimes involving a secret hush money payment he made to porn star Stormy Daniels just before the 2016 election to keep her from talking about him and specifically about having sex with him. And now, just before the 2024 election, Trump has once again demanded that Stormy Daniels sign on to an agreement not to talk about him, offering to knock thousands of dollars off her bill if she did it. And, you know, maybe this time Trump has learned his lesson about not laundering this through his business. But he really is basically trying to do the same thing again. I should also tell you, Chris, just one last point. We did contact the New York District Attorney's Office about this. That's the office that prosecuted Trump on the initial hush money case. And they had no comment for us on this matter.
Okay, I'm processing a lot here. So first of all, so Stormy Daniels paid Trump what she owed. She did not sign, in the end, any kind of agreement to keep silent. So just on that part,
Yes.
is that it's done? She's in the clear?
Yes, she did not sign any NDA, and her lawyer and she both made clear to us she never would. But there may be another piece of this, which is that since Ms. Daniels refused to sign this new NDA for Trump, she tells us that she believes her social media and online presence has been sort of mysteriously torpedoed. In other words, she feels that after she refused to sign his agreement to keep quiet, she was effectively quieted anyway online with what she feels is some kind of artificial throttling or false reporting of posts and mentions about her. I can tell you that at least one club promoting one of her recent stand-up comedy shows has expressed similar concerns. And we are looking into it now using a lot of different tactics and techniques, talking to a lot of different sources. We may have more reporting on that part of it in days ahead, Chris.
There's a few things that are fascinating to me, and one of them is it just seems like the horse is out of the barn here. Like, is it just, I mean, he's like the Terminator of NDAs, I guess. He just like really wants NDAs all the time, all over the place. But like, we do know all know the story. And what I think my main takeaway from this is, for whatever people say about this story, oh, it's priced in, people know that he's a philanderer, blah, 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 they certainly act as if it is harmful to him politically, both in 2016 and now.
What else does Donald Trump pay for out of his own pocket? Thousands of dollars. I mean, with all the information that we have about the contractors that he's stiffed and the small businesses that he's stiffed, his campaign still has hundreds of thousands of dollars in unpaid bills for small towns hosting Trump campaign rallies, right? I mean, he doesn't pay for anything, but he has repeatedly shown himself willing to dig into his own pocket to pay significant amount of money specifically to stop Stormy Daniels from talking. In advance of elections, he is willing to dig in and pay when he will not pay for anything else. And this means that it's important to him. And I don't know exactly why it's important to him. He continues to deny that they had any sort of sexual relationship. I think that the veracity of her testimony in his criminal case on these matters sort of speaks for itself along those lines in terms of who you're going to believe. But he is apparently still in 2024 right now willing to pay money to keep her from talking about him. And that is a very unusual thing. And I shouldn't be shocked, but I am.